Hey guys, Brett Weiss here. Welcome to another video. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out a lot. So I recently did a video on 5 things I hate about retro gaming. Yeah, I'm a huge retro gamer, but things weren't perfect back in the day, and I wanted to point out 5 annoyances. But to counterbalance that, and because I love retro gaming, I wanted to point out 10 things I absolutely love about retro gaming and things that you don't necessarily get with modern gaming. So without further ado, let's count down 10 things I love about retro gaming. Number 10, no load times, at least with the cartridge-based games. Or I should say, very few games had load times. Inexplicably, there are a handful of cartridge-based games that had load times. I remember a golf game for the NES had load screens, but hardly any cartridge-based games had load times. You plug that sucker cartridge into your Atari or your Genesis or your Super Nintendo, and boom, you're pretty much ready to go out of the gate. Now, there were some the early CD era, like the Sega CD and 3DO, systems like that. Yeah, load times could be a problem, but with your cartridge-based games, didn't have to worry about it. Number 9, you didn't have to worry about updates or microtransactions or anything like unexpected or time wasting after you bought your cartridge, after you bought your game. You buy the game, it's complete. You don't have to worry, or your system too. You don't have to worry about system updates or patches for games. Now this could be a negative as well, because if you bought a game and it was terrible, you're pretty much stuck with it, no way to patch it. Now companies would sometimes release a game, realize it had a significant flaw, and then in the next, print run, or however you'd say it, next production run of that game, they would fix that problem. But the game you bought, you were stuck with it unless they offered some kind of thing where you could mail it in and get the other version, and most people didn't bother with that. But anyway, by and large, it's a good thing that there are no updates with older games, because it's just kind of a hassle. And it's definitely good that there are no microtransactions. When you buy the game, it is complete. You don't have to worry about paying more to enjoy the game to its fullest. Number 8, I really love inserts back in the day. The primary version of this is instruction manuals. So many games now, virtually all modern games, don't have instruction manuals. They might, have in-game tutorials or direct you somewhere online where you can find instructions. But I like the instruction manuals. Look how colorful that is. I believe that's Kurt Swan artwork, the classic DC Comics artist. Great stuff. And look how colorful that is with the screenshots. If that's not Kurt Swan, let me know in the comments. I guess it could be Neil Adams. Regardless, check out those screenshots. Really beautiful. Very nice stuff there. Fantastic Adventures of Disney has a really cool manual. And you notice it's got, instead of being vertical like that, it's horizontal. And it opens up. You got nice art. You got storyline. You got the characters. Just really neat. Cartoony stuff. You gotta love the instruction manuals, old school. And so many people threw away their instruction manuals back in the day. And I kept mine. I threw boxes away for my ColecoVision and Atari and everything, just to make shelf room. But I definitely kept my instruction manuals. And I never understood why people would throw those away. And I shouldn't have thrown away my boxes. But in manuals, you could keep them all in just one stack. But other inserts I like are like catalogs. Really colorful catalogs. Makes you get excited to see what other games the company offers, so you could bug your parents or save up for these games. And it's just fun to thumb through. And certain games came with comic books, like certain Atari 2600 titles. Really neat. Some great artwork there. Neat stories. And some manuals themselves had like comic book strips within the manual. And I also liked, and this might be the coolest of all, the fold-out poster. Because these you could display on your bedroom wall. Pretty cool. Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge for the NES. Great looking poster there. And on the back, you get more ads. Check out Isaiah Thomas there. Very cool. And here's just another example of a fold-out poster. Captain Commando. You could be the coolest kid on your block with a Captain Commando poster on your wall, or perhaps the nerdiest. Fine line there. So that's the inserts at number 8. I love, just opening up a game. You're getting the game, but what else are you going to get in there? Probably, most likely the manual, and then, back in the day, you're opening a brand new game. It's almost like a gift within a gift. In addition to the game, you're going to get some other neat things. So I really liked inserts back in the day. Number 7, the cartridge itself. I'm a big fan of cartridges. Now, discs are fine, and modern media, physical media is great. Not a big fan of downloads. I like having the tangible games, especially cartridges. And you've got your typical, ColecoVision had pretty typical cartridges. They were, about the same size as an Atari 2600 cartridge, which we were used to at that point. But even these really weird cartridges like the Odyssey 2 that had a handle on it. I guess you could pull it out of the console that way with the handle. Some oddball-sized cartridges like Chuck Norris Super Kicks for the ColecoVision. Kind of made it hard to store, but still pretty neat. And check out this Space Attack cartridge for the Arcadia 2001. Look how much taller it is than the ColecoVision or Atari 2600 game. Still making it, storage harder, but still pretty neat. I just like cartridges. Sort of like, I don't know, baseball cards or comic books. They're just tangible, physical objects you can collect. I just really like them. Number 6, I like boxes as opposed to maybe CD cases or, like what you find in, for modern systems like for PS4 or whatever. Just boxes look really great on the shelves there, and I just really love the artwork. Pretty cool. Love me the Star Wars trilogy on the Super Nintendo. King Kong, check that out. I love licensed game boxes. Really beautiful artwork. Flash Gordon, one of my favorite movies of all time, was not ported, but sort of translated to the Atari 2600. Pretty decent game. And I actually like King Kong quite a bit. King Kong, based on the 1933 classic film, one of the greatest films of all time. Definitely the best adventure film of all time, in my opinion. Pretty decent Atari 2600 game. Maybe a little underrated, but check out that box art. It's just really nice. Pink Goes to Hollywood. It just looks great. These boxes look great on the shelf. Now, new games don't necessarily look bad. I mean, the Switch, Star Wars Pinball, that looks really neat. And the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy for the PS4, they look good, but I just have a little bit of a preference for the boxes. I just like the size and the shape and just how they look on your shelf. So at number 6, those are boxes. Number 5, I miss the magazine era. Yes, Game Informer is still being published, and Old School Gamer magazine, obviously, sort of patterned after the old magazines, sure. So there are, a handful of magazines here and there. But boy, we are not in the era of magazines anymore. It's pretty much a dead form for the most part. Yeah, you still see magazine racks at grocery stores and everything. There are still some magazines being published. But man, in the early 80s, there were tons of magazines, like video games. Again, we've got King Kong. Just look at that beautiful art. You can display that on your wall. And they're just so colorful and neat inside, even if it's just the ads you're looking at. I mean, the ads are just as cool as the articles in some place. Look, The Who, because they had the arcade machine on one of their games. Just great stuff. And check out that ad for Satan's Hollow. You got to love the old magazines. And Electronic Games was my favorite one. And look, this time of year, October, perfect magazine for this month. Electronic Fun with Computer Games is another one. Really cool, showing the climbing genre on this magazine. And they were just so very cool to read. Great stuff. So I miss the magazine era. That is number 5. Number 4, older games were just so simple to pick up and play for the most part. You didn't have, even though I like instruction manuals so much, I like a game where I can pick it up and not actually have to use the instruction manual, ironically enough. It's fun just to pick up a game to play, you plug it in, and you're just, shooting or gobbling dots or climbing or whatever it is right out of the chute. Now, there are obviously some examples, like Utopia for the Intellivision, this really early strategy game. But by and large, I prefer games, and most of the old games are like this, like Mario Brothers, like Moon Patrol, where you just can play right away, and it's pretty obvious what you're supposed to do. So that is number 4. I just love pick up and play games. You know, you don't have to think about it too much. And, you know, I do plenty of thinking while I'm writing, or if I'm dealing with the stress of, you know, paying bills or whatever. There's plenty of stuff that gets in the way, you know, that you have to use your mind for during the day, whether it's work or whatever. But with video games, sometimes it's just fun. A lot of times in my case, just to play a mindless game that can still be very challenging, that you just don't have to think up a lot. I love pick up and play games, and I miss that era of gaming. Number 4. Now, don't get me wrong, I do sit down and play some Grand Theft Auto 5 and some Spider-Man for the PS4 and just, you know, a variety of modern games, but I do love games where you can just jump right into the action and just immediately are under duress. And that relates to another item on the list in just a bit. So number 3, I really miss trackball and rotary controls for games. You don't really see this with modern games. And I've talked about this before on my channel. I love the old Atari 2600 paddle controllers. You just get such smooth and slick and precise and speedy control with ball and paddle games like Super Breakout and Breakout and Kaboom, Circus Atari. Love the Atari 2600 paddle controllers, and there's just not a modern equivalent of that. Similarly, Arkanoid with the VAUS, V-A-U-S, the VAUS controller. I'm not sure why they called it that or what that meant. And sadly, this was only used for one NES game, Arkanoid, which it came packaged with, which is sort of like an upgrading over Breakout, kind of the logical progression of a Breakout type game. But very good, you know, smooth, slick control, precise, speedy, you know, excellent rotary control. And man, trackballs are a lost art with the modern consoles. And man, I remember getting my ColecoVision roller controller back at Service Merchandise back in the day. This is not my original one because I had thrown away the box like an idiot. Because look, why would you throw it away? Look how colorful that is. I'm sure I was just making room, but it's dumb to throw that away because it just looks so great. But I remember getting my roller controller, which is what Coleco called their trackball back in the day at Service Merchandise. I think it was like 80 or 90 bucks. Expensive, but worth every cent because it worked great for Centipede and the pack and cartridge Slither and several other games. So I love trackball controllers. I've got one for the 2600, and it's not bad, but the 5200 trackball controller is really great, really arcade-like. It is awesome. So I really miss trackball and rotary controls. That's number 3. Now, number 2 is just the intense gameplay of the older games. And yeah, there are some that are pretty leisurely. Sure, there are quite a few, you know, some of the cutesy games, but man, there are some killer games from back in the day, like Defender and Robotron 2084, where you are under duress from the second you get on the screen, you are surrounded and you are fighting for your life every step of the way. I love Time Pilot and games like that where you're just, your attention just has to be laser focused and you are under constant attack. Now, modern equivalents of these would perhaps be some of the bullet hell games, some of which scroll vertically and horizontally. And these have been around, you know, at least since the 90s, you know, these bullet hell games, and where you are just, but these feel a little cheap sometimes as opposed to just being intense. You know, you feel like sometimes it's a cheat that you die, but games like Defender and Robotron, you always feel like you could have gotten out of the situation if you were just a little better player. But anyway, I do miss the intensity and the, you know, just sheer breakneck action of the older games. You don't get that as much anymore. So many games that you wander around, you know, without any enemies for a while, just, you know, searching for things or whatever. So I miss that old school, you know, hardcore gaming aspect in that way. And yes, I know there are some modern games that fit this, but it seems like a higher percentage are from the old school of gaming. So number 1, my favorite genres of games are from the old days. And I've told you this, guys, before. Maze games like Pepper 2 and Ladybug. I just love the elegant simplicity of these games. They're a ton of fun. They're relaxing. Not as intense as the shooters I've mentioned, but still very challenging, especially a little later into the game once you've hit a few levels. I love the climbing genre like Donkey Kong Jr. and Space Panic. They're just a ton of fun. Burger Time Donkey Kong and on and on and on. And I miss just the top-down old school vertical shooter like River Raid. Great stuff, you know, that's complicated with not a ton of stuff to overload you. I like power-ups and that kind of thing with more modern games, but sometimes it's a bit much. So I love the simplicity of the old 2D shooters, the old vertical shooters, and that kind of thing. And the old slide and shoot games like Space Invaders, or just some of the quirky action titles like Dragonfire. I've got the ColecoVision and the 2600 version. Just a strange little game. I just miss just some of the quirky action games that they used to have back in the day. That are just simple to pick up and play and just kind of odd and really kind of hard to classify other than just saying they're action games. And I prefer like 2D shooters better than first-person shooters. You know, I liked Halo and Dark Forces and some others, but I far prefer, for the most part, 2D shooters. And I like platformers, 2D platformers, better than the 3D platformers. So, for example, I like Super Mario Brothers 3 better than any of the 3D Marios, and that pretty much applies. You know, a really good 2D platformer I prefer to a 3D platformer by and large. Sometimes I'm in the mood for a 3D game, but just kind of depends on my mood. But, you know, 8 times out of 10, I'd probably prefer a 2D platformer to a 3D one. Anyway, guys, tell me in the comments, what do you absolutely love about retro gaming and what do you miss about retro gaming? If you do that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, and I will see you guys next time in another video. Take care.